So, a few months ago, I made 2 videos to show you how to go from this to this to this. Now finally, after what seems like ages, I'm going to show you how to do this. That's right, I have finally completed my print and paint job of Wicked's amazing Jungle Hunter Predator. Half scale, but 100% FDM. And I must have done a good job because the guys at Wicked said it was one of the best FDM models they've ever seen, which is the complete opposite of what this guy thinks.
One ugly
So as usual, because it's 100% FDM, it had to get chopped up a bit.
Get to the chopper!
Or Blender, to give it its real name. Now, I prefer to do this in Blender because I use it anyway, and I know a little bit about it, but there's loads of other programs out there that let you slice STLs really easily if you don't have a 3D program at hand. But to be honest, you don't need to learn a lot of Blender to be able to do this sort of thing. And it's free. Now it can be as easy as just adding a simple cube. This will act as the cutter and you just overlay it onto the object you wish to cut. Sometimes you have to make a more complicated shape though, and you'll see what I mean in a minute. Now all you have to do is duplicate the cutter in the bit you want to cut, select the duplication, use an intersect boolean, and the 2 parts will just become the parts where they overlap. Then with the original copy that's left over, you just do a difference boolean, which will only keep the bits that aren't overlapping. And the result of which you get 2 halves of the bit that you're trying to cut in 2, or 3 or 4. Now the reason I wanted to cut this base in half and print it vertically is because of those vertical ribs, which weren't supported underneath. So if I had kept the base flat, they would either be printed in mid-air and possibly fail, or have some very difficult to remove supports underneath them. The totem part of the base was absolutely fine to print like it was. I've got to admit this gave me some headaches. And the main thing really was how to print the bone ornament around his neck and the spine on his back. So for the front bit, I just took a bit off his neck and sliced it where it's going to be hidden by the head and the dreadlocks anyway. I rotated it so it was shooting up into the sky, said a quick Hail Mary, and then decided not to think about it anymore. The back part of the torso was a little bit more straightforward, just an easy cut down the middle, and I was going to print this bit with the spine and all in one piece, but I ended up cutting that in 2 in Bambu Studio, which you'll see in a bit. Much of the rest was pretty straightforward. The main thing you're looking for is a favourable place as possible to create a straight cut that gives you a flat bottom to stick to the build plate, and hopefully one that means that anything tricky to support is shooting up into the air and won't need as much support. Oftentimes it can be a bit of a head scratcher, such as this power unit for the plasma caster. It's really oddly shaped, it's got wires coming off it, so I just orientated it in a way that I thought would work with roughly vertical shapes, and bearing in mind this wire here, because after thinking about it for quite a long time, I figured the only way of getting that to print properly is to cut it in 2. But it can oftentimes be fun. Take this plasma caster here, or as I like to call it, Blaine's Bane. You see, I wanted to split it in 2 so that I could hollow out the barrel and connect it with magnets so I could put an LED light in there. So I built myself one of those cutting shapes as I showed you earlier, tracing around some of the details of the plasma caster in a way that I thought would be sympathetic to joining together using magnets. Once I used the intersect and difference booleans as I showed you before, I was left with 2 pieces. And I hollowed out both those parts using a cylinder and a difference boolean and created simple places to put the magnets, using boolean tool again, but this time using the addition function, which joins shapes together. If you want more tips on booleans and stuff like that, then check through some of my other videos where I go over them in a bit more detail. Right, the stand for the plasma caster, I'll just cut that side bit off because as you can see there's not really a flat area to print from when it's in one piece. And because it's me being me, I knew that if I did glue the stand to the power pack using the plug that's at the bottom of the stand, I'd end up snapping it off. So instead I cut the plug off the stand, created a matching magnet holder to stick to the bottom of the stand, and once it's all printed I'll test out the plug and the magnets and see if they were working, and if they were, I'll cut the bottom off the stand, glue it to the little magnet plate, and have a detachable stand. And obviously there's going to be magnets at the top of the stand and the base of the plasma caster. Next, and really quickly, with the additional bone trophies, there's this bit of the spine. I had a rope going through it, so I wanted to print that vertically, and the bit at the end I wanted to make sure that the spiky bits of the spine were pointing up into the air so they didn't need too much support. Now these little animal skulls, I didn't really see an obvious way to print these that wouldn't have an issue of some kind, so I just kind of winged it. And finally, although we did miss out footage of the skulls that go on the base, but you'll see those shortly, was this little bit of detail, which I thought could have been a support nightmare in all these little nooks and crannies. So I just took off a little sliver at the bottom and nobody will be none the wiser. So because of all the thin bits in the Predator logo, I did need to cut off the back and print it on its back so that all the thin bits would be printed vertically. And because I'm a creative director and a designer for a living, I couldn't help myself but to create my own version of the logo, because the one supplied was using a free font that claims to be the Predator font, but it's too fat and there's too many cuts in the letters. So with all those bits covered and cut up in Blender, and there is other 3D programs available, or you can even use your STL slicer, I just like Blender because I'm used to it. But it's finally time to go over to Bambu Studio and show you how to get it all printed, because I know what you're asking.
Now, what do we gotta do?
So the first thing to do is have a quick tour of the build plates. This is the A1. This is before I had my H2D, and as you can see, the big part of the torso, which I said I split into two, you can see why I did it there, to get the spines pointing upwards. And a few of the other bits and bobs. We've got the animal trophies that I just had to go with sort of flat. As you can see, this is what I wanted to do with the spine. All these little bits looking pretty good, but you get the general idea. They're all orientated so to limit supports and to make sure that we're getting no scraggly bits for people to see. Now with the all important settings on the Bambu A1, we've got the Bambu Super Tack build plate, the 04 nozzle, Bambu PLA matte grey, and a slightly tweaked version of the standard 0.16 layer height. And to be honest, I barely changed any of the settings at all, and I've always got an amazing print out of this setting. The only thing that I've turned on that's not on by default is ironing. Not sure if that helps or hinders on prints sometimes, but like I say, I always get amazing prints out of this setting. They're coming over to the strength tab. Everything I've changed is just turned down the infill density to 8% and changed it to gyroid. Because with common patterns like grid, because the lines overlap on the same layer height, you'll often find your nozzle catches on it and you'll hear that horrible noise and it can knock your print about. I never changed anything on speed, so over to supports. I don't know if this is right or not, but I'm a big fan of tree hybrid, and I'll show you why on the print preview. I tend to vary whether I'd put on build plate only on or not, but for me what is key and makes my supports work and make them so easy to take off is that set the top Z distance and the bottom Z distance at about double your layer height. And I did put a 10mm outer brim on, but I still got warping, so I don't know, I might have done something wrong. If you know what that might be, then make sure to comment, and while you're there, you might as well like and subscribe too.
Come on. Do it. Do it!
Right, so as you can see, we're looking at about 1 day, 16 hours. For this particular part, you can see how the spine looks like it's pretty well supported. They weren't too bad to take off, those supports weren't, but at least the detail's going to be there. And here's why I like tree hybrid support so much, because you've got all the benefits of tree supports, but where there's big overhangs that need lots of support, they switch to normal supports and make printing big overhangs really easy. And as you can see, with this rather shaky handheld footage, it came out looking fantastic. And once it's all together, the hard work seems to be paying off. I was really happy with how the bone necklace came out. It needed a little bit of filler, which I just used with knifing putty. But I have to admit, in the interest of time, some of the gaps that were going to be hidden by the head or were going to be out of eyesight, I just left as they were. And I didn't do much sanding at all, because to cover any imperfections, I just gave it all a light coat of UV resin, and all the imperfections just went away.
Hell, it's like they just disappeared.
Now here's a quick rundown of how all the other parts looked after they were cleaned up a bit and all put together. Now I have to admit I was super chuffed with how the Plasmacaster battery compartment-y thingy came out. All the panels are smooth, all the wires look great, the detail was clear. Absolutely fantastic. And here are the skulls that I forgot to show you in Blender at the start. As you can see, I kind of scalped them so that I could print the main part of the skull with the teeth facing up into the air. Because they were so little, they would be supported by their own gums when printing. So just had to glue the top of the heads back on, gave them a little sanding, then a light coat of UV resin. And yes, make sure you're wearing gloves, you've got a window open, or preferably some kind of mask. And here it is with the head that I'd already done quite a while before. All primed up, looking decent. And the skulls are primed in filler primer because it acts as a decent base coat for bone colour really. Right, in between shooting this footage and actually getting around to painting everything but the head was probably about 2 months, because I kept moving around different YouTube video content ideas. But when I finally came round to make a start, I just couldn't stop. First off is the old graphite rub, and if you see my T800 painting video, this will be familiar to you. And there is affiliate links in the description for a lot of the materials I use to paint this. And if you click and buy, I do get a little bit of commission, which all goes to support my channel. But I use this powered rub stuff because I thought it would give a really rich, deep, dark metal look to it quickly and easily. And it did. It's a bit messy though. It gets everywhere and there's lots of dust flying around. So again, wear a mask or even do it in a spray booth. But the results are damn good. You can add on a few extra layers and give it a bit more of a buff if you want it a bit shinier. But actually I just covered it in a bit of satin clear coat. Otherwise you just get graphite on your fingers every time you touch it. And after jolly good fun masking the guy, he's onto the Zenithal highlight spray. And I really should have moved Captain Titus away a little bit because I could have ruined this paint job I've started to do on him, which will be coming up in a video very soon. Once that was done, it's over to the airbrush. And for the base coat, I'm going to be using bleached bone from the Army Painter Air Mega Set, and then some skeleton bone too. And yes, there are affiliate links in the description. If you buy, I get a little commission. So we'll give everything a once over with bleach bone, then hit the shadowy areas with skeleton bone. I then thought everything was looking a bit stark without much detail in all the recesses, so I decided to make my own wash. So I mixed Crusader Skin, skeleton bone, and speed paint medium. And I smothered the damn thing in it all. But don't worry, this is just the way I do things. Once I'd put a load of it on, out comes another tool of the trade that often gets overlooked. Is a rag. Rub off all the bits you don't want. I seem to be developing this style where taking paint off models is just as important as putting it on. And a bit of mess here and there all just adds to the chaos. And chaos means realism. Okay, back to bleached bone. But this time for all the trophies. Giving them a nice off-white base coat. And then a bit more of a traditional kind of wash, a light sepia. And I have to say, the most satisfying parts to paint were actually the skulls. And again, I really slapped this stuff all over the place. There's no point in taking care. You want that underlying texture that a good, thick coat of wash can do. Right, quickly back to the body. I remembered when I painted the head, there was actually quite a lot of yellow in the skin tone. So I just got some yellow and sort of scribbled it all over the place. And I didn't use half the yellow that I'd put into my airbrush, so I added some rawhide brown to darken it down and just scribbled that over it too. I've had a lot of comments about people saying, should I take up airbrushing? It looks really difficult. But honestly, no, it isn't, especially on big things like this. In fact, you have to use an airbrush really, for the main part. And anything with texture or a bit of character like an alien skin tone, you just splat it around and scribble about the place. Doesn't need to be neat, you don't want it to be neat. Oh, here's a handy before and after so you can see how I've warmed up the skin tones. And with the highlight side of things pretty much done, I go in with the much darker colours into all the recesses. This one being pure rawhide brown, and you can see a lot easier the scribbly sort of technique that I'm using. Should I christen it Scribble Chop? Maybe not. So we'll go over the rest of the model with it, in all the bumpy areas and all the recesses and the creases and whatnot, and also decide to give a start of a base coat on anything that's leather, like the straps and the necklaces. I then have to embark on the oh so tedious task of painting in all these brown and black warty bits all over his tits and the rest of his body. After I'd done it all, I actually found a much better way of doing it later in the video, which I wish I'd known at this point. So we'll just add the dark brown warts all over him and scribble away into all the recesses again. But it's not just scribbling, oh no, I also do stippling. That's where you just flick the trigger to let out a few little splats of paint. And onto more layering. The more layers though, the more complex it looks, and it all just adds to the chaos. But notice here, I'm not just going left to right and up and down, I'm literally bouncing it about. That's because it's only a light spray that I'm doing. Whenever I go over it again, it adds to the opacity. And because it's sort of a random sort of shake that I do, the opacity becomes random. And you get sort of darker spots and lighter spots, and it all adds to the chaos. Oh, and then it was back to the tit warts. And as you can see, it started to look rather epic. If you look at the before and after, before I started this next big phase, you can really see the effect. Right, onto what I consider a bit of a save point sort of manoeuvre, is just giving it a coat of clear coat. So that could be matte, satin, or gloss, depending on the type of look you want. For this model, I've always gone for the satin look. And I call it a save point because it kind of protects the paint work that you've already done, and if you make a mistake on top of the clear coat, it's usually quite easy to wipe off, at least a lot easier than if you'd done it straight onto the existing paint. Sorry, my commentary is now starting to lag behind the visuals. Just doing a dry brush of skeleton bone on the skeleton bones. And what I found out recently, I was always doing dry brushing wrong by wiping the excess off with a cloth that would always give that chalky effect. And that's because it's stripping all the medium out and leaving the pigment in the brush. So you really should dry it on something non-absorbent, like a palette. Oh, and using dedicated dry brushing brushes is always a bonus. And yes, there's a link in the description. But don't they look nice? Honestly, the skulls were just so satisfying. I don't know why. I think that probably says something quite morbid about me. Oh, I'm lagging behind again. I did the leather, then I'm using black to do the neck bit. Then I decided all the recesses weren't hardcore enough and slapped on a load of the black speed paint. And yes, speed paint links are in the... Oh, you know what, who cares? And I used the old rag chop method, or Q-tip chop method. And I really went to town with it. And because it's over the top of clear coat and it's speed paint, you got quite a lot of work time with it. But you don't want to be too late, because if you leave it too long and it stains, it's going to look a bit shite. But what does it do? That's right, it all adds to the chaos. But adding this black in was really worth it because it really added much needed definition and volume. Once I'd had enough of that, I dry brushed all the leather stuff, but I did more of a stipple sort of effect just to break up the brown tones a lot more. I then gave his buckle a bit of a buff, as well as his alien metal brassiere, not to mention his disappointingly limbless shoulder armour, and I buffed the base. And then a Q-tipped his you get what I mean. That's a technique I wish I'd known earlier. And there we have it. Job done. Finally. After months and months and hours and days and eons and dog years and cat years and fortnights and several British bank holidays. It's all done. Oh no, it isn't. I got to do the logo panel. It took layer and layer of white paint and then layer and layer of this lovely orangey red, but it turned out pretty epic. Oh yeah, I got to install the LED light that I got off Amazon. So I hot glued another magnet, pretty ropey bit of hot glue. If I was to do this again, I'd obviously manufacture some proper thought out connections, but these little LEDs are awesome. They're about like £5 for a bunch of them. I'll just put them in there, magnetized, and away they go. Perfect. And that really was the last bit. I have to do a massive shout out to Wicked for such an excellent STL and all their fantastic support on their Patreon group on Facebook. The community there is truly excellent. So remember to like and subscribe, comment and share, maybe and become a member, or buy me a coffee in the link down below. Any help will just help support my channel grow. And remember, you're welcome at Crackfox Studios.